Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we diving into the life of a man whose name is literally synonymous with genius, Albert Einstein, but this isn't just about E equals MC. We're going to uncover the story of the rebellious, curious, and deeply human person behind the iconic hair and the groundbreaking theories. Our story begins in Ulm, Germany in 1879. Little Albert was a late talker, so much so that his parents worried something was wrong. But when he did start speaking, it was often in full sentences, which he'd quietly rehearse to himself first. From a young age, he wasn't like the other kids. He preferred building complex card houses and puzzles over rough and tumble games. A pivotal moment came when he was just 5 years old. Lying sick in bed, his father showed him a simple magnetic compass. For most kids, it would be a fleeting curiosity. For Einstein, it was a profound mystery. What invisible force was making that needle point north, no matter which way he turned the compass? This question sparked a lifelong fascination with the unseen forces that govern our universe. It was the first inkling of the mind that would later rethink space and time itself. School, however, was not his happy place. The rigid, rote learning style of the German education system clashed with his inquisitive nature. He famously described it as being like a military barracks. He wasn't a bad student, especially in math and science, but he hated being told what to think and how to learn. His teachers often found him frustrating, with one even telling him he would never amount to anything. Imagine being that teacher. This experience fueled a deep-seated skepticism of authority that would stay with him for his entire life. Feeling stifled, at 16, Einstein tried to get into the prestigious Zurich Polytechnic in Switzerland. He famously failed the entrance exam. Let that sink in. Albert Einstein failed. But he didn't fail the science and math sections, he aced those. It was the general subjects like languages and history that tripped him up. So, he spent a year at a high school in a nearby Swiss town to catch up, and the following year, he was accepted. At Zurich Polytechnic, he finally found a more liberal academic environment. He also found love. He fell for Mileva Merrick, a fellow physics student from Serbia. She was the only woman in their class, a brilliant mind in her own right. Their relationship was a passionate meeting of minds. They studied together, debated physics, and pushed each other's thinking. Their letters reveal a deep intellectual and emotional connection, with Einstein often referring to their shared work and ideas. After graduating in 1900, Einstein struggled. He couldn't find a teaching position. For 2 years, he was essentially unemployed, scraping by with temporary tutoring jobs. It was a humbling and difficult time. His father's business had failed, and he felt like a burden on his family. This is a part of the story we often skip over. The genius was once just a struggling graduate, desperate for a break. Finally, in 1902, the father of a close friend helped him get a job. It wasn't in a university or a lab, but at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern, a patent clerk, 3rd class. It sounds mundane, but this job turned out to be a blessing in disguise. The work involved analyzing patent applications for new inventions. It required him to quickly grasp the core principles of an idea and identify its flaws. This daily exercise sharpened his ability to deconstruct complex problems and think critically about the fundamentals of physics. And because the work wasn't too demanding, it left him with plenty of time to think. While sitting at his simple wooden desk, he would conduct what he called thought experiments. He'd imagine chasing a beam of light or riding in a falling elevator. These weren't just daydreams. They were the mental laboratories where he would forge his most revolutionary ideas. Then came 1905. Historians now call it Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year. At just 26 years old, while still working as a patent clerk, he published 4 groundbreaking papers in a single year. Any one of these would have secured his place in the history of science. The first paper explained the photoelectric effect, showing that light can behave as a stream of tiny particles, or quanta, which we now call photons. This was a cornerstone of the new field of quantum mechanics and would eventually win him the Nobel Prize. The second explained Brownian motion, the random jiggling of particles suspended in a fluid. He proved it was caused by the collisions of invisible atoms and molecules, providing concrete evidence for their existence. The third, and most famous, was the special theory of relativity. This paper completely upended centuries of physics. It proposed that the laws of physics are the same for all non-accelerating observers and that the speed of light in a vacuum is constant, no matter how fast you're moving. From these simple ideas came shocking conclusions. Time slows down and distances shrink the faster you move. Time and space were no longer absolute but relative. And as a short addendum to that paper, he derived the most famous equation in history, E equals mc. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. A tiny amount of mass could be converted into a tremendous amount of energy. The implications were, and are, staggering. Suddenly, the obscure patent clerk was the talk of the physics world. The academic positions that had once been out of reach were now offered to him. He left the patent office and embarked on a career as a professor, moving between universities in Zurich, Prague, and finally, Berlin. But he wasn't done. Special relativity dealt with constant motion. What about acceleration? What about gravity? For the next 10 years, he wrestled with this problem. It was an intellectual marathon. Finally, in 1915, he unveiled his masterpiece, the General Theory of Relativity. In this theory, Einstein redefined gravity. It wasn't a force pulling objects together, as Newton had described. Instead, gravity was a curvature in the fabric of spacetime itself, caused by the presence of mass and energy. Think of it like placing a bowling ball on a trampoline. The bowling ball creates a dip, and a marble rolled nearby will curve towards it, not because it's being pulled, but because it's following the curve in the surface. This was a radical, beautiful, and mind-bending new vision of the cosmos. The theory made a bold prediction that starlight passing near the sun should be bent by its immense gravity. In 1919, during a solar eclipse, expeditions led by the British astronomer Arthur Eddington photographed the stars near the sun. The results confirmed Einstein's prediction perfectly. The news splashed across front pages worldwide. The London Times headline read, "Revolution in Science. New theory of the universe. Newtonian ideas overthrown. Albert Einstein became an overnight global celebrity, the first science superstar. His fame came at a turbulent time. The rise of the Nazi Party in Germany made his position as a prominent Jewish intellectual increasingly dangerous. He had always been a pacifist and an outspoken critic of nationalism. In 1933, while he was visiting the United States, Adolf Hitler came to power. Einstein knew he could not return. His home was raided, his books were burned, and a bounty was placed on his head. He accepted a position at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey, where he would spend the rest of his life. He became an American citizen in 1940, but his pacifism was deeply tested by world events. Fearing that Nazi Germany was developing an atomic bomb, and urged by fellow scientists, Einstein signed a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1939. The letter warned of the possibility of an extremely powerful bomb of a new type and recommended the U.S. begin its own research program. This, of course, led to the Manhattan Project. Einstein himself did not work on the bomb. His pacifist leanings made him a security risk in the eyes of the U.S. government. When he saw the devastating power unleashed on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he was horrified. He famously said, "I have made one great mistake in my life." When I signed the letter to President Roosevelt, he spent the rest of his years tirelessly campaigning for nuclear disarmament and world government, believing that humanity's technology had outpaced its morality. In his later years in Princeton, he became a beloved, if eccentric, local figure. He'd walk around town in his comfortable old sweaters, often without socks, lost in thought. He was approachable, kind, and had a wonderful sense of humor. But scientifically, he became somewhat isolated. While the physics community was diving deeper into the weirdness of quantum mechanics, Einstein could never accept its probabilistic nature. God does not play dice with the universe, he famously declared. He spent his last decades trying, unsuccessfully, to find a unified field theory, a single theory that could describe all the forces of nature. Albert Einstein passed away in 1955 at the age of 76. He left behind a legacy that transformed not just science, but our very understanding of reality. He showed us that the universe is stranger, more wonderful, and more interconnected than we ever imagined. But beyond the genius, he was a man who embraced curiosity, questioned authority, and used his platform to advocate for peace and humanity. His story is a powerful reminder that great ideas can come from anywhere, even a third-class patent clerk daydreaming at his desk. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the life of a true icon, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.